Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Punching Up with Sean Conroy. I am Sean Conroy, and I am, as ever, punching up, or at least attempting to punch up. And the thing I wanted to talk about on today's episode, because it is that time of year, and you all know what I'm going to say, it is the beginning of the new year. Welcome, 2026. I'm actually recording this a couple days before the end of the year, but you won't hear it until after the beginning of the new year. And that makes me think about what's going to happen in the new year on a personal level for me as a writer, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about writing. And, I have trouble with lists. Like, that's the thing that everybody does at this time of year, right? Is make a list of all the things they're going to accomplish, their resolutions, their list of resolutions. And I've always had trouble with lists for a variety of reasons. I was trying to think of what lists I make, and I make lists when I'm going to the grocery store for what I want to get, and I end up frequently, more frequently than you would expect, I end up not being able to read several of the things I put on the list and getting home and not being able to make the things I wanted to make. Um, I get very stressed out when I'm in the supermarket and I look at the list of ingredients on something. Like, how could there be 60 things in this? 60 ingredients. There can't be that many ingredients. Isn't this just a fig Newton? Shouldn't it just be figs and Newtons? And then, of course, I consider the fact that Newtons are a measurement of force, and there's no way you could put that in a cookie. But I also last night looked up I looked up America's Most Wanted. I was like, what are some famous lists? I looked up America's Most Wanted, and I am not kidding. I am not making this up. There is someone on America's Most Wanted list wanted for murder whose first name is Lethal. Leethel. Lethal. Uh, it feels like you shouldn't name your kid Lethal. That's going to have an impact on their. It's like naming a kid improv comedian. Don't do it. Um, some other famous lists, of course, Santa's list. He's making it. He's checking it twice. He's going to find out if you're naughty or nice. That feels very close to the blacklist in the 50s. Like, if you're a communist, we're gonna get you out of government, or out of screenwriting or whatever it was, out of Hollywood. Schindler's List, obviously, very famous. I feel like that was one that was definitely worth doing. I wonder if Schindler ever was like me, where he was like, I've put too many things on this list. There's too many of them. I can't get all of this done. Who knows? Maybe. Um, Franz Liszt, of course. I couldn't help myself but to write down Franz Liszt, very famous list. And of course, I've always preferred Chopin. But thinking about resolutions, I feel like I don't want to make a bunch because that's setting myself up for disappointment. So, what can I do as a writer? Because that's what we're focused on this podcast. As a writer, what can I resolve to change about myself in the new year that will benefit me? Um, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, what if because all the same stuff always comes up, right? I'm going to write more. I'm going to finish more projects. I'm going to write more. Like, I had a guy last year who told me that he usually, not usually, but once in a while, he'll write 4 pilots in the course of a year. And that's like, to me, that's insane. How could you be that productive and that sure of yourself? And of course, he is recently ran a show for one of the big streaming services. So, he obviously knows what he's doing, but that just seems like a lot. And that's always, I'm going to sell a show. I'm going to write this many shows. And those are all, admirable to a greater or lesser extent. I think something like I'm going to sell a show is hard because it's something that you ultimately don't have control over. Whereas if you say something like, I'm going to make something that I feel like is capable of being sold, that feels to me like a more realistic way of looking at stuff. Um, but here is what I started thinking about for myself, because obviously this is all about me punching up with Sean Conroy, punching Sean Conroy up with Sean Conroy. Um, I was thinking about what are my weaknesses as a writer, and I fainted, and then I got up. And here's one thing I've never done. I've done a lot of things as a writer that have gone well. I've done some that haven't gone well. But my attitude as a writer has always been, as long as I continue to do good work, people will find me and ask me to work with them. And that has worked out to a certain extent, but it is not enough, because one of the things about this career, this type of life, is you have to put yourself out there. You have to say, I have something really good that I've written. Would you like to read it? Because if you do, you might agree that it's good and you might want to do something with it or with me. And I have never really done that a lot. I have put myself in a position where I've worked with great people who've gotten stuff and who have asked me to work with them. And I've pitched to networks a number of times, and I've almost sold things. Very, very close. I have a thing in development right now that's moving along, humming along. We will see. Um, but I've never really pushed myself to get out there and say, I have great stuff. You should read it. And I decided that my resolution for this year, because that is a weakness of mine, and because I would like to strengthen my weaknesses, just as we all want to work on our core, I want to be aggressive about putting myself out there. And so then my next thing, obviously, was what will that mean for me over the course of the year? And I don't want to make it too big. I don't want to feel like a failure because I didn't accomplish this. I don't want to say, well, every day I'm going to send a query letter and I'm going to call a management agency, a manager or an agent. Um, I'm going to call my agent and see what's going on just to chat. I don't want to say that's going to be a regular thing. So here is my resolution for 2026 as a writer. If I can find one way each month to put myself out there to people who might make a difference in my career, that will be a great 2026. Who knows if anything will come of any of those things, but I have control over whether I take the steps to put myself out there. And if I can do that, I will feel good. And I think, why haven't I done that before? Honestly, probably fear of rejection. Um, I was looking at rejection, you know, in terms of writing, and there's so, obviously every writer just would much rather write about writing or write about their writing about writing than actually write, which is why there's so many books about being a writer. But, you know, J.K. Rowling, the author of the Magic Boy books, uh, that manuscript was rejected 12 times before somebody finally said, there might be something to this. Turns out there was. Um, Stephen King wrote his first novel, Carrie, and it was rejected 30 times. I think he has a quote about how he had a nail on his wall that he would hang his rejection slips on, and eventually he had to replace the nail with a spike because there was too many of them. Um, I'm trying to think of who else, because I did look it up. Um, Frank Herbert wrote a little book called Dune. Maybe you've heard of it. They made it in '84 and they remade it in two parts over the last couple of years. Was rejected 23 times before somebody said, yes, let's do that. John Kennedy Toole wrote Confederacy of Dunces. Trigger warning, there's mental health discussed here. John Kennedy Toole was rejected over and over again for 5 years. And not just because of that, but it contributed to his mental health deterioration. He killed himself ultimately. And after he died, he killed himself in I want to say it was like 1969. And after he died, his mother took the manuscript and she started pitching it to people and getting rejected. She got rejected 7 times. Then they published it, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for Literature in 1981 because he was persistent and his mother was persistent. I guess that's the point of this episode is have a persistent mother. But anyway, that's my plan for 2026, and I am curious to know what your plan is going to be. So first of all, I write about this stuff once a month. I have I don't know what else to call it, but a newsletter about writing and about writing sitcoms. Same ideas as this podcast is about, although it's usually about stuff I don't talk about on here. But this month I'm putting out something about this resolution. So number one, go to my website, subscribe to my newsletter, but also find a way either through my email, Sean@SeanConroy.com, or through my newsletter. If you respond to my newsletter, I get it directly and I will respond to you. And let me know what your just one thing. Focus on one, if you have any weaknesses, focus on one weakness in your writing that you would like to improve over the course of the year. Tell me how you're going to do it. And if you want, if you're interested, I might be able to give you some suggestions that might help. So email me and let's have a great 2026. And I might actually, my cousin Timmy told me years ago that Confederacy of Dunces was the funniest book he had ever read. So maybe I should try reading it this year. 1981 Pulitzer Prize winner in literature. All right. That's it for this episode of Punching Up with Sean Conroy. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being. We will see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter and this one.